Hey, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys. We get together each Sunday here in order to help you guys to learn meditation and do some meditation together. We have other courses and retreats and programs and stuff like that, but because the night walking market is going on, we like to kind of get together with you guys to do some meditation and help you guys a little bit in your practice to train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state. What the Buddha did is 2,500 years ago, he figured out how to be able to train his mind to get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. Oftentimes people think that these feelings are coming from something external, but you can actually see through the teachings of the Buddha in a way that you can independently verify that it's actually coming from your own mind. And this is why you can eliminate it. So meditation is part of the training that you need in order to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. But there's other things that you would need as well. You wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. So tonight we're going to be doing loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation that helps to transform your mind away from anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, an individual might think that you like certain people and then there's other people that you dislike. And you might think that that dislike is coming from the other person, where in reality it's coming from your own mind. You can actually train the mind, essentially rewiring it so it no longer experiences that. And loving kindness meditation is part of that, where by the time you get to enlightenment, not only have you eliminated those discontent feelings, but you'll notice all your relationships are harmonious, that you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility anymore. You might think that you're kind of justified in the way that you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to someone. But once you learn that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings and that you can transform it, you'll be able to see how to go out into the world and be loving and kind with everyone around you. And this is going to produce more harmonious relationships for you. Because oftentimes when we struggle in relationships in the unenlightened state, we think the way to solve this is to change the other person. But what you learn is actually that doesn't work. The way that you change your relationships is you change your own mind. By transforming your own mind, you can actually now transform your relationships, because you can be loving and kind and warm and gentle in your day-to-day activities around people. And then this is what's going to transform your relationships. So I'll guide you guys in this meditation. And then afterwards, I'll help you guys to understand more about the teachings of the Buddha. But ultimately, I'm just going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have. I'll just share a little bit of the teachings of the Buddha, but really use it as a question and answer period. So you guys can ask any and all questions that you like. So the way that we start with this meditation is we start with some chanting in order to ease the mind into meditation. This will help bring some awareness to the mind and awareness to the breath. And if you'd like to do the chanting, I have them on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get a laminated sheet. For those of you guys that are online who are joining us, you can actually get this on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. Just click on free books and scroll down towards the bottom and you'll be able to see the chanting sheet there. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would recite his teachings orally because they didn't have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, all these different things during the lifetime of the Buddha. So they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So this was a learning tool, as a learning device. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't the actual teachings of the Buddha. Those are misunderstandings that people have. So we use these chants in order to prepare the mind and ease it into meditation. But you might see other people talking about chanting in other ways, but just understand the Buddha used it as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. It was a learning tool, as a learning device. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance or putting yourself above other people and looking down on them. So the Buddha wouldn't have done that. But if you learn from a teacher, how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration and all these other feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment. And this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you. They were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart. You'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think that these chants actually came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So we're going to be chanting these on the way in, and you can actually chant them if you like. It'll help you to get more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance on breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a different type of meditation, but it kind of helps prepare the mind a bit for loving kindness. So you'll hear me guiding you, essentially instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a brief period of time of quietness, maybe just 3 minutes or so. And during that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear dogs barking, cars going by, birds chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, it'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. That's what causes the mind to be discontent, is it craves permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing. So if you're in meditation understanding that everything around you is constantly changing and it is impermanent, when you hear that sound, you understand that that's normal, that these sounds will arise, they will change, and they will fade away. So during that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you hear occasional sounds. Then I'm going to come back in with some guidance for the loving kindness meditation. You're going to hear me saying these affirmations out loud, where I'm going to be saying things like, may I be peaceful. When you hear that, you would like to repeat that in your mind on the out breath. And then I'm going to say, may I be safe. And then again, repeat that in your own mind on the out breath. May I be well. And then may I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. So you'll repeat each of those on the out breath. Then I'm going to go to some other rings, like may mom and dad be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. And you'll hear me go to these wider and wider rings until eventually we get to all beings. Now, when we're doing these phrases, this isn't to change mom and dad. This isn't to ask some higher power to come and make mom and dad peaceful or safe. It's to cultivate in your mind this active goodwill towards all beings, this loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So that now when you're around mom and dad, you can be more loving and kind. So this is how you can transform your relationships, is by transforming your mind so that you have more love and kindness in your mind for various individuals. And now when you're around those people, you can function in a more loving and kind way. So we're going to go through all these different affirmations, eventually going back to breathing mindfulness meditation and then going back to the chanting. The way that I think about this is like a loving kindness sandwich, that in the middle, you've got loving kindness, the lettuce and tomatoes, like the breathing mindfulness meditation, and then the bread holding it all together, that's the chanting. Okay, so I'll walk you guys through this as we go. This meditation, we usually do it in either the seated, lying, or standing position. There is a walking position that the Buddha taught as well, but typically we don't use that for the loving kindness meditation. So I'll just give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position to be able to help you out. But just understand there's these 4 positions, and you would learn these at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. You could be sitting on the floor in a chair. Maybe you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You could sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. You can use what I'm sharing with you just as suggestions or recommendations, things for you to consider. As long as your body's comfortable, that's what's important. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here for you. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up, or you might just rest your hands comfortably in your lap. These are all options for you. Same thing for anybody who's in a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. You can put your feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting here in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option too. It's helpful if the body is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because it's going to help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the sternum up and shoulders back, not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll help you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do this chanting on the way in. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind focused on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these phrases in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May my family, friends, co-workers, and neighbors all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who have caused me harm be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bồ Tát Ma Ha Ke Văn Hang ภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this evening. This is loving kindness meditation. This meditation, along with other things that the Buddha taught, will completely eliminate all the anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions in the mind, like frustration, agitation, annoyance. Even the slightest dislike can be eliminated from the mind, and this comes through training of the mind. Oftentimes people might get into things like this and they think it's about belief or rules and commandments and all these other kinds of things, or maybe rituals and ceremonies, but that's not what the Buddha's teachings are. He's not teaching you to believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. He's also not teaching you rules and commandments. He's also not teaching you rites and rituals and ceremonies and things like this. If you see these kinds of things, they're actually not the teachings of the Buddha. He's teaching you to go inward and train your mind to be able to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are for, is to completely eliminate all the things that are actually causing the mind to experience these painful feelings, this hurt. Oftentimes people think that the outside world is what's causing their inner feelings, but you can see through the teachings of the Buddha that it's actually your own mind that's causing these feelings. This is why you can eliminate them. That the mind in the unenlightened state has craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning, it's chasing after things. It has certain wants and expectations. It's craving permanence. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy or excited about that. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And when these feelings are coming up, they're very uncomfortable for the mind. And because of the mind's lack of wisdom, it will tend to attribute these feelings to something external. But you can see through the teachings of the Buddha that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings in a way that you can independently verify. The mind's ego isn't going to want to let you see that truth, but you can penetrate into this and be able to see the truth for yourself, that your mind craves permanence. So for example, say you got a brand new car, right? And you're really excited about this brand new car, and you drove it to the store and you parked it at a store, and then you went inside and you came out and you saw a scratch on your car. If you got angry or frustrated in that situation, it's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing this is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So the paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to get changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if you have a craving for permanence, when you're experiencing this impermanence, the mind doesn't like it. So one way to say it is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is that the mind doesn't like impermanence. It doesn't like change. This is why if you look at your life in any kind of times where you've been having difficulties and struggles, you can see that this was times where your life was changing the most. That maybe you were even making the decisions to make those changes. Like maybe you're changing living locations, you're changing relationships, you're changing jobs or things like this. Wherever there's a lot of significant change in your life, the mind oftentimes has a lot of struggles and difficulties during this period of time. So don't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you here, because what I'm sharing with you is that it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings. You need to be able to see the truth for yourself in order to cultivate wisdom. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was wanting? What were you expecting? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy or excited about that. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted, it experienced anger, sadness, or frustration. Maybe you showed up to the airport so excited to go to Thailand. You just couldn't wait to get to the mango and sticky rice and those massages and the elephants, and you're so excited. And then you showed up and your flight's delayed or it's canceled. Right? And now the mind maybe is frustrated. And with a lack of wisdom, the mind will blame the airline company. And it oftentimes will become unskillful, where the mind will push people away. You might be bitter, harsh, or hostile, or you might start putting expectations on people and trying to control people. The mind here is craving for every single airplane to take off on time. That's the craving for permanence, especially the airplanes you're on, right? Those are the planes you want to take off on time. But the fact is that there's going to be a maintenance issue, a crew issue, a weather issue. If you travel enough, it's only a matter of time before you experience some kind of impermanence in your travel. But if your mind craves permanence, you'll sit there in the waiting area being frustrated and agitated or annoyed that you're not able to get on your airplane and go to Thailand, where in fact it's just impermanence. That's all it is. So you can actually eradicate this. You can eliminate this from the mind, or you can get to a point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. You don't experience any of those discontent feelings. So breathing mindfulness meditation, normally you do that as one session just by itself. Today we did it as kind of like a way to prepare the mind for loving kindness meditation. But you can actually do that meditation on a consistent, ongoing basis because it trains your mind to let go. The goal of that meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's actually to train your mind to let go, because that's what the mind's doing when it's angry or sad or frustrated or feeling guilt or shame or fear. It's holding on. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you guys broke up and now you were angry or frustrated afterwards. You might have thought that was your love that was causing that, but that was the mind holding on. It was craving permanence. It wanted this person to be in your life permanently. And in reality, they are impermanent. But at some point, your mind let go. Maybe 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. Sometimes I talk to people 5, 10 years. They're still holding on to an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, and their mind is still upset. They're lonely or bored or missing this person or angry. This is because the mind's holding on. But if you train your mind to let go, understanding that things are impermanent around you, then you can get to a point where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. You're not experiencing that discontentedness. So this meditation, loving kindness, is actually rewiring your mind to be loving and kind. There's other things you would need besides this meditation in order to fully transform your mind. But this meditation, as I mentioned, isn't to change other people. It's to actually change your mind so that as you fill up your mind with this loving kindness, you can go out into the world and be loving and kind with the people you interact with. Because oftentimes we try to change other people in order to get our relationships to improve, because we think that's the problem. Mom and dad aren't doing it my way. Brothers and sisters aren't doing it my way. That's what the mind wants. It wants everybody to do it my way. And if they do it this way, I'm happy, I'm excited. But if they do it this way over here, the mind doesn't like it. All that is impermanence. Everybody does things differently. So with breathing mindfulness meditation, you can train your mind to let go, to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And as long as you hold on, craving permanence, you'll keep experiencing discontentedness. But there's still this anger and hostility and bitterness in the mind that needs to be eradicated. And that's where the loving kindness meditation comes in. It's like filling up your gas tank with loving kindness, and you go out into the world and you're loving and kind through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And this is where your relationships really improve. I went for a really long time trying to change my mom in my life because I had all these expectations for my mom. I wanted her to do all these things my way. And we always had problems. Whenever we'd get together, it was like fireworks exploding, right? Maybe you have people in your life like this too, that when you guys get together, it's like, right? So for a long time, I kept trying to change mom. But then when I understood the teachings of the Buddha and I started working on my mind, I could be more loving and kind around mom. And it completely transformed the way that I interacted with mom. And then it transformed the way she interacted with me. As long as I was trying to change her, I wasn't changing. I was still angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. I still had expectations for her. But once I changed my mind, and now I was being loving and kind with mom, when she was being bitter and hostile with me, she could see that it was her mind, that it wasn't my mind, because my mind had no longer had that anger and hostility. So this meditation will completely rewire your mind through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It's not going to be instantaneous. This is one of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha. People think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And it's not actually true. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. The Buddha gave a really great analogy about training your mind in this way with loving kindness meditation. He talks about this digging tool that has a wooden handle. And when you're digging with this wooden tool or this wooden handle tool, each day you're wearing wood off of the handle, but you don't know how much. But each day you're wearing away wood off of the handle of the digging tool. And when you get to the point where you've worn away enough wood, you'll know when it's time to replace the handle. So each day you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away, but when it's time to replace the handle, you're going to know that. And the same thing's true about your anger and your frustration and all these other feelings. If you train in the way that the Buddha teaches, you're not going to know each day how much you're wearing away of that anger and hatred and bitterness and hostility. But when it's completely gone, you'll know that. Because it'll be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You haven't been angry with mom. You haven't been frustrated. You haven't said a mean word at all, right? You're just experiencing so much more love and kindness coming back to you because that's what you're putting out. So the teachings of the Buddha are based on you improving your mind. And now by you interacting with people in a more loving and kind way, this is what's going to produce the better results in your life because people are going to be treating you more and more with loving kindness. But you can't expect that. You can't want it. You can't long and yearn for it. It means that you just need to practice it because you know it's the wise thing to do. And then slowly but surely over time, you'll see your mind and your relationships completely change. So I'm just going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions because I just shared just a little bit of the teachings here with you about the Buddha's teachings. If you guys would like to ask questions, we have microphones here in the bowls. All you need to do is get a microphone because that way the people online will be able to hear you. All you need to do is press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on and then you can hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple and they'll be able to hear you online. And then if you would like to keep these microphones with you, you might have more than one question or someone around you might have a question and you can just share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll help so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So let's say you have a question, sir. It just takes a second for it to engage. I call them Buddhist microphones. You need to be patient with them. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so my question is, this is my first time in Thailand and I see a lot of big Buddhas and a lot of amount of them. So basically Buddha, like I think was teaching that he's not above of somebody, but we see a huge status of Buddha and we see a lot of people who are like on the knees are praying for him. How is it like works if the Buddha don't want people to be like lower than him?
Sure. So the Buddha never taught anybody to make statues of him, but people did. About 200 or 300 years after his death, they started making statues of him. He also didn't teach people to pray to him, that he actually taught that there's nothing you can acquire through prayer. He said if it was as easy as getting things through prayer, then who among us would lack for anything? Because all we'd have to do is pray and we'd immediately get what it is that we want. So what you see people practicing and what the Buddha actually taught are oftentimes two very different things. And it's important for you to focus on your practice and not focus on what other people are choosing to do. The Buddha's teachings are in 45 volumes of books that are about this thick, and the average person actually doesn't have access to them. This is called the Pali Canon because it's very expensive to print out, and the average Thai person, it would cost them about 3 months of their salary to be able to acquire this. So you probably don't have any book collections that are like 3 months of your salary. So the average person doesn't actually have access to this. So for 2,500 years, these teachings have lived as an oral tradition handed down from one person to the next, and they've been inadvertently changed in some cases. And in other cases, they were overtly changed. And the Buddha taught that it would be unwise to change his teachings. He talked about the harm and the dangers if you changed his teachings, that it would no longer lead to enlightenment. So now, 2,500 years later, we see a lot of people have changed his teachings. But what I do is I provide the words of the Buddha for free so people can get access to it. You can download the books for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. And what we've done is we've taken these 45 books and we've consolidated it down into 13 books that are just kind of like smaller like this, so they're more approachable. And now you don't believe those teachings. You learn them, investigate, examine them. You reflect on them to verify if they're true or false, and then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. So while you see a lot of people doing different things, that's not necessarily what the Buddha actually taught. But you can learn what the Buddha actually taught by learning and practicing his teachings, and you'll see that they actually work, because you'll see that situations that you were once angry and frustrated and agitated, you'll be in those same situations and your mind doesn't experience that anymore. It just means that you need to do some training, some development of your mind, and you'll be able to see the truth that it works. So just because you see people doing certain things in the temples doesn't mean that that's what the Buddha actually taught. All the way down to the statues themselves, he never actually taught that, and he didn't even look like that during his lifetime. This picture that I have over here, this is actually what he looked like. He never walked around with a crown on his head. He didn't wear those elaborate fancy clothing that you see people wearing. This is because the people who started making statues of him, they actually didn't live during his lifetime. It was many hundreds of years afterwards, so they didn't actually know what he looked like. But the individual who did this artwork, they actually looked in the original source teachings of the description of what he looked like, and they created this so they could actually represent what he looked like during his lifetime. Because he was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in Northeast India. So he looks like an individual from that part of the world. But if you go to Japan or China or even Thailand, you'll see that he looks very Thai or very Japanese or very Chinese. But you can see this artwork, he looks like somebody from that region of the world, because that's where he was actually from. So you're going to see tons of misunderstandings in the world. But if you get back to the original teachings of the Buddha, practicing his original teachings, you'll know what he actually taught and what he didn't teach. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah, just press the button. You'll see the lights come on. You just need to wait for the lights. And
okay. Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been meditating for a while, and what I've noticed that obviously thoughts come and go, so they're temporary. And then I come to kind of realization, who am I? Who notices the thoughts, or I'm the thoughts, or I'm just like a changing consciousness, observing process of noticing thoughts.
Okay.
So this topic is very interesting for me.
Sure. So there's a body, the physical body, and then there's the mind. And the combination of these two things, the Buddha describes as the person. Some people describe it as the observer. And this person is looking at the mind, and that's what's actually experiencing this. So it's the mind experiencing various thoughts and ideas and things like this, and the person is looking at that and noticing that. But that's not you. It's not who you are. It's just experiences that the mind is actually having, and you can train your mind to understand that that's normal. You will always have thoughts. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. You will always have thoughts, even as an enlightened being. But the difference is in the unenlightened state, you will have a bombardment of thoughts. It's like thought, 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 thought. Or you'll have a thought and you indulge in it, look at it, play with it, follow it. Next thing you know, you're 2 or 3 minutes down the road and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. And you'll bring your mind back to the breath. So those what happens for an enlightened being, or I'm sorry, an unenlightened being. An enlightened being doesn't experience that. They'll have a thought, they'll notice it right away, and they'll cut it off and let it go. And then there's this quietness and stillness in between their thoughts. So it's the person that's looking at the mind. You can almost think about the mind kind of like a 3-year-old kid, right? Like when it's untrained, it throws temper tantrums. That's what the anger and the stress and the anxiety and the guilt and the shame and all these other things are. It's like the mind throwing a temper tantrum. And the person is like, hey, dude, come on. Like, we need to get calm here. Like, I don't like all this anger and frustration. And the mind's like, nah, we're not doing that. I'm going to stay angry. So the person needs to build the determination and the dedication and the diligence to be able to be willing to train the mind. And even though the mind doesn't want to do it, you're going to need to gradually train the mind and get it to the point where it's more disciplined so that the person can discipline the mind and now control the mind rather than the mind controlling you.
So who am I, that person? I'm not the mind. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, the who am I question is actually a question that you'll never be able to answer because there is no I. This is the universal...
Changing process.
It's not even changing. It just doesn't exist. Because what the mind's going to do in the unenlightened state is it's going to try to grab onto something and say, this is who I am. You know, I'm an American, I'm a father, I'm a Buddhist teacher, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a this. And the mind's going to want to grab onto all these things. But then when all that stuff changes, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you've lost yourself, that you don't even know who you are, right? So as you change jobs, as you change different things in your life, if you grab onto any of these things as who you think you are, it's just going to change. So the mind needs to get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize that this body nor this mind is you or who you are, but the mind's going to keep trying to grasp. That's why it keeps asking this question of who am I? And it wants to grab onto something. But as soon as you grab onto it and you say, this is me, then when it changes, you're back at square one again. So you need to get rid of that whole thing and realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you, but there's certain training that you can employ, like proactive training and in the moment training that's going to help you to do this. Because if somebody says, wow, you're so handsome, that shirt brings out the colors of your eyes, you might be like, wow, they're talking about me, right? And now you're feeling all good. But then it's only a matter of time because of impermanence that someone says something degrading or negative, right? And now you're frustrated and angry, right? And they talk about the appearance of this body. And this path isn't about going out in the world and changing other people. You can't change other people. You can't control them to do things your way. But you can train your mind that when somebody comments about this body and this physical appearance, that you're unaffected by it. And that's what you would get to when you realize non-self. When you realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you. Of course, you're going to take care of this body and do what you can to keep it healthy. Same thing with the mind, but you don't identify with any of this as who you are. And that's where the mind can be free and liberated. As long as you grab onto any of this, you can't be free because you're going to get happy feelings when people say things that are agreeable to you, and you're going to get painful feelings when somebody says something disagreeable to you. So there is no self. Mm-hmm. More questions? Yep.
Test. I have 2 questions. And the first one is related to, well, I live in a big city, right? And sometimes it could happen that I get into a situation, right? Which is a violent situation, self-defense situation, right? In that exact moment, I'm fighting for my life. And then, you know, sometimes you could try to de-escalate the situation and that works out fine. But let's say that you're not able to de-escalate and using or resorting to violent, or not violence, but aggression to get out of this, to, you know, preserve your life is the way to go. Mm-hmm. So you know, in this case, I'm not hating the person, but rather I want to preserve my life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the thoughts that come afterwards, once you're out of the situation, this is about letting go. That part I understand, but in that exact moment when you're fighting for your life, how does that translate to Buddhism?
Sure. So the Buddha taught to live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. Sometimes people think that the Buddha taught no killing or preserve all life at all cost, right? He didn't teach those kinds of things because that's like black and white, right? There's this large gray area that you need to navigate. So what he actually taught on this topic is he taught to live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings. And of course, avoiding killing if you can, right? So compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. So if somebody is attacking this being, one of the first beings you need to have compassion for is yourself. If you don't have compassion for yourself, then you can't practice compassion with other people. So this person coming at you to cause harm, the natural law of karma is that if someone's causing harm, harm is going to come back to them. So if you needed to cause this person harm in order to preserve this life, you're not going to experience any unwholesome results in that situation. You're going to experience wholesome results or wholesome karma. That's the word karma, means cause and effect or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. Whereas if you just stood there and you didn't have compassion for the welfare of all living beings, meaning starting with this being, and you just let this person stab you with a knife or beat you up or whatever, you're going to experience unwholesome karma because you're not living compassionately for the welfare of all living beings, starting with yourself. So you can actually defend this being who you are through whatever means you need, but you would like to cause the least amount of pain, of harm and pain as possible, just to stop this from occurring. And now when this is over, you can rest at ease and you don't have to have any guilt or shame or anything like that, because now you can see true reality. You can see that this person came at you with harm, and the only reason why you caused harm back was to live compassionately for the welfare of this living being. That's the only reason why you did it. You didn't go out, like you said, with anger and hatred and ill will and intentionally looking for someone on the street to beat up. No, you were just maybe just say resting in your house and someone broke into the window at 2 a.m. in the morning. They're not bringing you chocolate and flowers at 2 a.m. in the morning. They're there to do harm. So that's why what I advise people to do is if they can get out of the house, right? If they want to break something, if they want to steal something, so be it. Get out, be safe, call the police, let them deal with it. They have the training and the equipment to do that. But it's not black and white, right? Because the Buddhist teachings aren't plug and play. It's not like if this happens, do this. It's not a decision tree, because that would be a permanent answer for every single situation. You need to actually look at the variables, because if someone breaks in your house at 2 a.m., maybe you look out your window and there's a gang of people outside. It doesn't make sense to go outside, right? Or maybe your whole neighborhood's on fire. Maybe there's a forest fire and the whole neighborhood's been caught on fire, and now there's people looting all the houses, right? So you need to be able to look at each situation, moving to this higher consciousness, and figure out what would be wisest. And you need to live compassionately for the welfare of this living being, and then cause the least amount of harm as possible to other beings, because that's what's going to limit or eliminate the harm that's coming to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And now for the second question,
Mm-hmm.
about frustration, right? The example with the airline was very good.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about also like voting, for instance, right? You're in a, like right now, the political climate is a bit turbulent, but let's say, how do you preserve, or how do you ease your mind if you see, let's say, non-compliance or corruption or degradation of the government, even though you have voted, you've placed trust in someone, because in a way you are, providing trust to that party, let's say, or organization. But in return you get seat, or maybe the seat is a bit too much, but yeah.
Okay.
Not
So
the desired result. Is that permanence, or is that more failure of the system. I don't know how to
Yeah.
say it
So,
otherwise.
so whenever you're experiencing discontent feelings, it's always coming from your craving, desire, attachment, your wants and expectations. So if you're voting for someone and now you have an expectation that they are going to do things a certain way, now when they don't do it your way, you'll get angry or frustrated. And if they do it your way, you'll be happy and excited. Now, of course, when people vote, they're voting for someone who's promised a certain result or a certain action, right? But now there's impermanence that can happen. Things can change, right? And now when things change, the mind standing there with your craving for permanence, I want it this way. I expect it this way. And the mind can only be happy if it happens this way, where there's times where you're not going to get what you want because of impermanence. And now the mind's experiencing the painful feelings. So you need to cast your vote. What I encourage people to do if they ask me about this is look for a wise decision maker, because whatever they promise in the political campaign, you can already know because of the universal truth of impermanence, they're not going to do all of those things. They're not going to do 100% of that because that would be permanence. And we live in an impermanent world. But if you can look at the way this person makes decisions in their life, what kind of wisdom do they have? How are they making decisions? And if you understand the natural laws that the Buddha taught, you'll make a wise choice about this decision maker. Because from when they're out of office to when they're in office, oftentimes they learn things when they get into office that the things that they campaigned on aren't feasible any longer. But if it's a wise decision maker, they'll figure out a good solution to be able to make it amenable for everybody. It might not be what they promised on the campaign trail, but at least they're making wise decisions in that particular office that they're holding and that they've been elected to. But in terms of you getting to peace and joy, when you cast your vote, you need to know that I'm casting my vote because I have confidence in this person that they're going to make wise decisions. And if they get into office and they make wise decisions, okay, great, that's wonderful. But if they don't make wise decisions, then that's the choices that they're making. I made my choice. I don't have any expectations here. At the time that I made this choice, I thought this person was a wise decision maker. Now I can see that there's different decisions that are being made, and that's new information that you have. But at that particular moment, you thought that this person would be best. And now things have changed. And now you see things that are different. So as long as you don't cling to any expectations, you can maintain your peace and joy. Just know you did what was wisest at the time based on the information that you had. And then as things change, you have no control over that. And now you can just be at ease and just make the decision that you think is best. And then understand that at the end of the day, this person is a human being that's going to be making decisions based on what they think is best. And then you just let go and without any expectations.
Thank you.
Yep. And by the way, when I say these kinds of things, for an individual who hasn't trained their mind, it's easier said than done. Right? To say, cast your vote and don't have any expectations. Okay, I understand that. I can see how that would get to peace and joy. But if you're not training your mind with the Eightfold Path and all the meditations and all these other things, you'll find that very hard to do. So that's why you need to be able to be consistently training your mind. It's not just a matter of hearing a few words from me and then you're going to snap your fingers and instantly be able to do what it is that I'm sharing with you. Because you can know intellectually what would be wise, but then when it's time to do it, the mind just doesn't want to do that. It holds on to these expectations. So that's why you like to be consistently training your mind on an ongoing basis so that you can get to the point where your mind isn't craving and clinging and you can practice this better way of life that the Buddha shared. And that takes gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to get to that point. There's no amount of just one conversation that's going to fix all of that. So that's why the Buddha has a whole path of teachings that you can learn. The core central teaching is called the Eightfold Path. And that's what you would like to really be focused on as you first get started and journeying on this path. And using the resources that I share because it has the words of the Buddha, the original words, because there's many places that are sharing what they call the Eightfold Path. But if you look at what the Buddha originally taught and what they're sharing, it's oftentimes very different. So you'd like to be able to see what the Buddha actually taught using his original words. Mm-hmm. More questions?
I was wondering if ambition and detachment can actually exist simultaneously. So, for instance, if I am training my mind, can the ambition almost seems like a sugar-coated word for craving, or is ambition not the same as craving? What's your take on that?
Okay, so in the unenlightened state, the way that people will see ambition and enthusiasm, it's based in craving, right? Like if you want this bigger house, you will then work really hard at work, progressing through promotions to get increased salary so you can buy that house. And that was the motivator. That was the ambition that got you to that bigger house. But that actually burns out. That craving will burn out. This is why sometimes you get up with a certain idea, you pursue it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then it burns out and you're like, psh, I don't even want it anymore. Or you actually get it, you feel happy for a period of time, and then you don't enjoy it anymore. It's like, it's kind of like a dog that chases a squirrel. It basically grabs it, kills it, and then it doesn't even eat it. It just looks at it. It's like, well, okay, that's over now, right? So it's the same kind of thing as the unenlightened mind is chasing, and that's what it's using for its motivation and ambition. But it's actually a false pursuit because it's ultimately going to burn out. And even if it doesn't burn out, once you accomplish what you want to accomplish, it won't feel as interesting anymore because you'll get your initial pleasant feelings, but then those will fade away. But if you're all the way on the other side of this, where the mind's dull and lethargic and complacent and sluggish and lazy, that's not peaceful and joyful there either. So that's why the Buddha taught this middle way, where you can actually gradually pursue things with true ambition, with motivation, with enthusiasm, but you do this with wise decision making, not based in craving. So if you think about the Buddha, he taught from the age of 35 until 80. So he taught for 45 years. That's a lot of ambition. And his ambition was, I would like these teachings to reach the entire world, right? And here he was in Northeast India speaking a language that was only for that small region of the world. But he had this ambition that his teachings would reach the entire world, but he knew it wouldn't be during his lifetime, right? So you can function as an enlightened being with ambition, and it's actually true ambition. It's sustainable ambition. It's consistent and dedicated and determined ambition, where this craving, desire, attachment, that's not true ambition because it's going to burn out, or you'll get what you want and you'll feel unmotivated afterwards. And the feelings that you got from that will actually wear off anyway. Where this, you can stay consistent all the way through. But you got to get those cravings out of the way, and you got to get this dullness and this lethargic condition out of the way too, where you can just gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And the mind doesn't know how to do this. That's why the training is so important, because I can share this with you here and you can be like, yeah, that sounds better. I'd like to get that. You need to do some training in order to do that, because these cravings are going to get in your way, and you've got to get those out of the way, get them out of the mind so that the mind can come to the middle. And when you're letting go of craving, desire, attachment, the mind doesn't just come right to the middle. It's going to overshoot. Because if you're used to chasing with craving, when you start scaling that back, your mind will tend to swing to the other side where there's dullness and lethargic and unmotivated and lack of ambition. But then that's not the middle way, and you notice that, and there's teachings to help you bring your mind back over here, but it doesn't just go to the middle. It actually overshoots the middle again, but it's like a pendulum, right? So if you're craving here, and then it swings over here, and then it swings here, and swings here, and swings here, swings here, and then eventually you get to the middle, and you're like, that feels good. I can do that for the rest of this life. So you can have ambition and be enlightened. In fact, you will have true ambition, but the mind just needs to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? No questions? Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. All right. I don't see any questions online either. So what I'll do then is just end by thanking you guys for coming. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for dedicating some time to training your mind, because it's like a ripple effect. By you training your mind, it's actually very helpful and beneficial for you. It's helpful for the people around you, because as you're being more loving and kind, the people around you will experience that. And then it helps the whole world become a more gentler, more kind, more loving society. So thank you for your dedication dedication to learning and developing your mind. If you'd like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. Tonight at 9 o'clock here, I'm going to be teaching the 4 stages of enlightenment and the 10 fetters. These are 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered that you need to eliminate out of the mind to be able to experience enlightenment. And then all next week, I'm going to be teaching a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., where I'm going to teach you all the foundational teachings. And then on Friday, I'm going to be doing a tour where I'm taking people outside the city to be able to look at some temples and help you to understand artwork, architecture, and symbolism of Buddhist temples. So when you visit a temple, it has more meaning for you. And you can see all these events and others like social events and things like this on our calendar over there or on our website. And if you have any questions, you can always come ask me. So enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever you do, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Sawadee ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.